Yeah.
I would assume is that. I don't know. But wow. And when did you become interested in this subject?
Well, it was very personal for me. I fell into MDMA therapy for PTSD in my late 40s when I was shocked to be diagnosed with PTSD from unhealed childhood trauma. I had lost my partner of over 20 years when Carl passed away. And about 18 months after his passing, I experienced a panic attack for no real reason. It was like off of a work email. And that panic attack wouldn't go away for months. I was hypervigilant. I was suicidal. I just absolutely knew that I was going to be in poverty like within a month. It was a really, really weird experience. And I went back to the therapist that I had chosen to work with to help with my grief work. And for the first time, we started talking about some of my childhood stuff that, I'm Generation X. I didn't have a great childhood, but lots of people had it way worse, is kind of always the way I thought about it. And so when my symptoms wouldn't go away through talk therapy and through a Wellbutrin antidepressant prescription, I was ultimately diagnosed with PTSD. And then I learned that she was in a program, my therapist was in a program to become a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist. And if I was interested in working with the therapy that at the time was in the phase 2 trials, because this is a couple of years ago, so they had just published phase 2 research, where like 2/3 of the people who went through the trial no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis. So I had this beautiful opportunity in front of me to work with my therapist with an evidence-based treatment. And what we were doing traditionally with the talk therapy and the antidepressants wasn't working. So that's how I became interested, because I was a patient. I went through the therapy for a year, 3 therapeutic journeys over the course of a year.
Wow. 3 therapeutic journeys through the period of 1 year. So you had 3 different therapists?
No. Same therapist and guide. So the protocol for MDMA therapy is for each patient, you have 2, I'm going to use the word facilitators or practitioners. Most of the time, they are therapists or people who've been trained in mental health conditions. Sometimes you might have like an expert in medical. You might have a real expert in the medicine, especially when it's happening underground. Like my therapy happened underground. I was not part of a clinical trial. And so that protocol is that journey day, and the journey day is with you and the psychedelic and the 2 practitioners. That cycle happened for me 3 times over the course of a year. And at the end of the 3rd cycle, that's when I no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis. I was no longer suicidal.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
that's potent. Like that's big news. So 1 year of talk therapy and the symptoms were not going away. And for how many months with the MDMA therapy you had to went through to get fully rid of all the symptoms?
Yeah, let's reverse that. It was a couple of
A
months
couple of months.
from when I had that panic attack,
Yeah.
and then went back to my therapist. That was a couple of months.
Ah.
When I got the diagnosis and agreed to the therapy, we then took a few more months. So I agreed to the therapy in maybe March or April. We didn't have the first therapeutic journey with MDMA until September. It took me that long, weekly or biweekly talk therapy, to really figure out what the problems were. Everything was deeply rooted in fear. My father was a pretty terrible person, and my childhood was full of neglect. So there was a lot of fear that kept coming up. And I also had to wean off of the Wellbutrin. And so from like April-ish through September, we prepared for that first journey. I think it's also important to realize I was not an experienced drug user. I had tried ecstasy once in my life and couldn't wrap my brain around how ecstasy was actually going to be therapeutic. But I was not an experienced person with drugs. So there was that apprehension. I had all the stereotypes my entire life of like the egg in the frying pan and drugs are going to destroy your brain. So I had to kind of work through those fears. And so my first journey was September. My second journey was December. My third journey was May, because my doctors basically let me, through talk therapy, kind of work things out. And they didn't push me that, oh, you're ready for another journey. It was up to me to say, I'm ready for another journey. I'm ready. I know what I need to work on. So that's how that year unfolded.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's so interesting. And let's say I have PTSD.
Yep.
And I want to go through those journeys and have MD, like how'd you mention again? Psychotherapy. What's the term?
Psychedelic assisted
Psychedelic assisted therapy.
psychotherapy. Yep.
Psychotherapy. I would have to find a specific therapist who do that.
Yes.
Right. You're lucky that your therapist was already doing that. We're planning to start doing that. So.
Yes.
What would be the process for someone who wants to start doing that? They just look up on Google, like how easy it is to find this. Well, I would assume first you need to you need to know for sure that you have PTSD, right? I think a lot of people don't even know that they don't have the diagnosis that they have PTSD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the very first thing is to get yourself in a therapeutic relationship. The hallmarks of PTSD are a hypervigilance, an intense fear that's really unfounded. Your brain knows that fear is not, nothing's really ever going to happen, but your body feels like you're constantly being chased by some wild animal. Your body's reactions don't